tell you I had a boss named Ming Wei once?
이거 어서 해.
Did I tell you that? Probably not.
No.
Okay, well, thought I'd let you know. Although she didn't have a family name, her whole name was like Ming Wei. Nonetheless.
I think one is her feminine name.
Yeah, probably. Which one do you think? Ming?
Wei.
Wei. Ah, okay. Because usually there are 3 syllables. Same thing with Korean, but sometimes you run into Koreans with only 2.
Yeah, the 2 is kind of formula now.
Let's see. I think I'm missing Aisha, but we're going to have to go ahead and get started so that we can get going. I think the first thing I wanted to do is to make sure that you're aware of what it is that we're going to be doing for next week. Because now we're rolling into the phase where we're going to start having homework. You had some reading to do over the last two periods, and you had some videos to watch, which related to those readings. But starting with Monday, we're going to start having homework. And so I just want to quickly bring up the week 3. Oh, and you know what I got to do? I have to share that. So why don't I be smart and let's see here. I got to get back over here, share my screen, and it's going to be this guy. And so in week 3, you've now been familiarized with how I've arranged the course. Week 3 is over here. The thing that I want to point out for sure so that you recognize it is inside here, there is a lot of things, there are a number of things that are going to be due before Monday, okay, or by class time Monday. I will expect you to have gone through, and towards the back of the book, there are a number of chapters called keys. They're, I think, key 1 through 15. I'm going to want you to read key 5 out of the textbook. It's going to go along with the nouns that you read about today or for today. But it's going to talk a lot about count and non-count nouns, which is something that causes some English language learners trouble. You're also going to be reading about pronouns. And I know you've heard of the term pronoun. We're going to be looking at what does a pronoun do in addition to the work that you're going to be reading about on count and non-count nouns. There's a couple of videos to watch, as you can see here. And then finally on 125, and that is on Monday, you should post the homework number 1, and it's going to be relatively short, but it's exercises 2.23 through 2.28 in the workbook. All right, so in the front of the workbook, hang on just a second, just to make sure that you're oriented towards it. We're going to go into the 2nd chapter. And let's see here, what page is it going to be on? So we're going to be going to 2.23. And 2.23 is here on page 38. And you'll see that you've got 2.23 through 2.28 this coming up for Monday. Okay? Now, when you turn to the back of the workbook, you will find that we have these chapters called Practice for Key 1 through Key 15. You're going to be reading about Key 5 in the textbook on those pages. And then when we get into Wednesday, you'll see that we're going to start doing exercises for Key 5. Now, as you look at the bottom here, you'll notice that there's 2 ways that things are being talked about in terms of the exercise numbers. On the first one, it's 2.23 through 2.28. Those are just going to be the things that are in chapter 2. But when you start to see 3 numbers together, the 3.5.1, for instance, down at the bottom, That is going to be in chapter 3, so it's further back in the book. And it's going to be in practice for key 5. And in there, they will have a number of other exercises from 1 through 18, okay? But what you've got to do is pay attention to the difference between the chapter 2 numbers, which are just serially numbered or sequentially numbered. And in 3, they're sequentially numbered, except that there's also this extra division for the key chapters that we're talking about. So what I want you to do is make sure that you read the 2 things here, watch the videos. You'll have already read about nouns. We'll talk about them a little bit more today, but you'll then be ready to actually do the homework exercises for Monday. So they should be posted before you get to class, and it will be on nouns. Later on in the week, we're going to ask you to print and read a couple of handouts that are out on the folder for week 3, and print those along with an exercise handout. Watch some videos, and again, we're going to have some more reading to do. In this case, it'll be for key 7. So just keep those in mind. If you run into some confusion and you're not quite sure where to go, please let me know, and I will help point you out to how the book is broken out. You can also see it by looking at either one of their tables of contents. The big thing, though, is you've got some reading, and you've also got the first exercises, and they're going to go into the folder called Homework 1 under Assignments. And you'll remember there were a couple of ways for you to do that. You could either scan those pages, or you could video those pages and post that file up on D2L. Video, I'm not going to be checking the accuracy of your answers, so you don't have to spend more than a couple of seconds per page, just so that I can see that you did all of the work, or see how much of the work you did. Okay? So I'm going to stop right there and say, do you have any questions on all of that? And I'm going to assume that you don't. So do you have homework for Monday? We do, right? And where are you going to post that homework? D2L. In which folder, Michaela? I saw you say D2L. In which folder?
Assignments folder.
It's in assignments, and inside assignments, there is a homework number. Very good. All right, that's where that stuff is going to go. Once again, if you have some trouble initially with D2L, feel free to email me your homework, but we're going to change it back so that it's all over on D2L going forward. But if you have trouble, you can email it to me if necessary. Okay? So the next thing I want to do is I just want to ask you about your questions. We took that pre-test on Wednesday. It was quiz number 2. And I suggested that you go back in there and look over any that you had any real questions about, so that we could discuss them. Did anybody have any questions out of those? And I'm trying to understand why something is the way it got answered?
Is this the, it's called quiz number 2, but it was pre-test 2?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't know most of them.
Well, that was the point. You're not supposed,
right?
actually, that's not exactly true. You know them. You just don't know the rules and the explanations for them. My guess is you use everything that's in here, almost everything that's in here properly, just about every time you speak or write. But now that you've got to sit down and come up with an answer for why things are what they are, then you begin to realize, geez, I don't know any of this stuff. And that is actually part of the point. I'm trying to make sure that everybody recognizes that they've got a big hole in their knowledge, a big hole in that knowledge that you're going to need for your students before very long. I know we did talk about a couple of them, but if I were to look at number 10, which sentence has an intransitive verb? What is an intransitive verb? I'm going to say this many times. I was 50, probably 53, 54 years old before I knew what an intransitive verb was, and I had lived a perfectly happy life up until then. So I then turn to you guys who are all much smarter than me and say, Emma, what's an intransitive verb?
I'm actually not sure.
Well, see, there you go. That's a correct answer, right? So other people just say, I don't know. Correct answer. Teresa, intransitive verb? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I looked it up.
You looked it up? Okay, well, guess what? That is not a terrible thing to do. Now, I have lots of students who go through this thing and I can stop and say, what does that word mean? I don't know. Does anybody ever stop to look it up? So tell me, what is an intransitive verb?
And I know, but I don't know whether I describe it right. Intransitive verb is the verb has its own meaning without adding extra words.
Without getting extra words, so that's certainly partially true.
That's
We could be a little more precise. Teresa, what did you find?
It says an intransitive verb is defined as a verb that does not take a direct object.
Very good. Okay. So that's a little bit more precise. Rachel is correct in saying, hey, you know what? We don't have extra words. Well, there's a particular kind of word we don't have, and that's a direct object, but we could have other things like he slept in the bed. That would be intransitive with extra words. So it's important to think about being fairly precise. Now, Teresa, where did you look that up?
Google.
Huh?
On Google.
On Google. Guess what? That's the place to go. Where else could you go? Where else do you think you could look up intransitive verbs? Or what an intransitive verb means?
In our text.
I'm sorry?
In our text.
In your textbook. Where in your textbook would you look?
The glossary.
Ah, is there? Oh, there is a glossary. Oh, let's see what they tell us. Intransitive verb. Intransitive verb, says the same thing, a verb that is never followed by a direct object on page 461. So let me make a suggestion to you. When you run into a word that you don't know, particularly around all this grammar stuff, look it up. You could look in the index in your book. You could probably look in the glossary in your book. I know it's almost like a terrible thing for me to say, but you could look it up in a dictionary and you can look it up on the internet. Get used to the idea of looking some things up. If you don't know what they are, that's perfectly fine. It's just not fine to just leave it unknown. Some of these things you need to look up. So having looked it up on the internet was a good thinking. Looking up in the glossary would also be good. So don't shy away. Yes, sir.
So even with that definition, I'm still kind of unclear on which of these would be correct.
Okay. And is that because you're not clear on what a direct object is?
I think I know. I'm just seeing I can't see that any of these don't have a direct object. I think I know.
Okay. So let's look at I'll tell you the answer is A. Okay, the answer is A. In the storm, the small bird plunged from the tree. Now, nothing is being impacted by the plunge. We're just talking about where it fell from. However, if you look at B, we enjoyed what? The party. Party would be a direct object. In the next one, every student in the class uses what? A number 2 pencil. So we're going to certainly study direct and indirect objects before we, about right around the middle of the term. But it's basically going to be a direct object is something that is impacted by the verb. I kicked the dog is the direct object. He bought her a ring. The ring would be the thing that was purchased. It would be the direct object.
So why isn't the tree a direct object in A?
Because it's not, if we had said the bird flew and the bird hit the tree, that would be the case where the tree was impacted, right? Almost literally, actually, but it was the thing that was impacted. When you're talking about fell from the tree, that's not going to be a direct object. It's just basically talking about location.
Got it.
A little tricky. All right. Other questions?
I have a question about the number 2, the 10 questions.
The number 2?
Alaska, the sentence is Alaska is a U.S. state. So the correction is Alaska has been a U.S. state. It's hard for me to use this sentence in different situations.
Okay. So the reason that we are talking has been is the fact that there is a period of time talked about. So Alaska has been a state since. It's actually that word since that tells you probably need has been, not the word is. We're going to be talking a lot about verbs as we get through this. We're going to talk all about all the other parts of speech first. And then we're going to hit verbs because verbs carry so much meaning and their use is pretty complicated. So in the case of that one, the reason we need has been is is caused by the word since and a period of time. Okay? But we will get there. And I'm going to give you some good sites for looking at so you can look this stuff up. All right. Other questions? Anything else in quiz 2? Did everybody get 7? The is not used with names of countries except when? I think we talked about that one, had a bunch of examples. When do we use the when we're talking about a country name?
When the country seems plural.
Exactly. When the country name seems plural. The Republic of, that indicates that it's built out of a bunch of little parts. The Philippines, we just call them the Philippines because it's got an S there. And it's very reliable to look at that. We talk about the United States, but we don't talk about the Germany, or we don't talk about South Korea unless we call it the Republic of Korea, in which case the Republic is making us think plural. Anything else?
On number 9, you said the process long is not a pronoun. I'm a little unclear.
That is true. Now, I will tell you that occasionally you will read a grammar book and they will say that her is a pronoun or a possessive pronoun. But in this case, it is not. And the reason that it is not a pronoun is because it is not replacing a noun phrase. Now, you're going to see when you read in the read next week, we're going to be reading about pronouns. And so take a note. Something I want you to make sure you really capture when you're looking at pronouns is, what does a pronoun do? It replaces a noun phrase. Now, in your schooling, up until this point, you've probably been told a pronoun replaces a noun. That's not actually precise, but in this case, her is just describing paper. It is not replacing it.
Okay.
And so this is going to be a little tricky, and we're going to talk about it next week at some length, because it is a tricky concept to figure out the difference between what we're going to call a determiner and a pronoun. Hopefully by the end of that, you'll have a better feel for it. What else? Any others?
Number 13.
Number 13. Stop becomes stopping, listening becomes listening, and the P in stopping is doubled, but the N in listening is not. Why is the N not doubled in listening? What did you choose?
Does it have something to do with like, because I learned in my speech class about stress.
It
Does it have
does.
something to do with stressing?
It definitely does. So it has something to do with stress. Let me give you 2 examples. You see if you can find something different. Listening is the correct way to spell listening. But if I had the word begin, it's beginning. So one is listening and the other one is beginning. Which one got the double L? The second one, I'm sorry, the double N, the second one, and why? Ariel, do you know what the difference is?
The listen has the S stress.
The listen, it's not so much the whole word does, it's the part of the word. Listen, so it's going from listen, oops, let's see if I can do that right. I have a heck of a time doing this in reverse. Listen, and the other one is begin. The difference is, if the reason that this has only one N is, the answer is E, the first syllable of listen is stressed. In the case of begin, where we get 2 N's, it's because the second syllable is stressed. Simple rule. Most of us learned most of that rule back in grade school, but there are holes in all of our knowledge about what is the actual rule. So that was the rule. As Ariel said, it's definitely a matter of stress, and that difference is if it's the second syllable being stressed, it's likely to double that final consonant.
So can we distinguish, can we next time say S in front of the consonant, vowel consonant? So that's the stress, right?
Well, you got to listen to where the accent in the word is. Okay, listen, it goes B is kind of low, and then begin. So that's where the stress is. The other one is high at the beginning. Listen. So that's going to be the difference there. Okay, how many people we got today? I think we've got 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, okay, great. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to reach into the paperwork I asked you to bring last time, and I want you to find quiz number 3. Okay? Quiz number 3. I am going to put you into a breakout room. I'm going to make 4 breakout rooms. So we're going to have 4, and it's going to be assigned automatically. If you are in room number 1, you have question number 1. If you are in room number 2, you're going to have question number 4. If you're in room number 3, you're going to have question 5. And if you're in room 7, I'm sorry, if you're in room number 4, you're going to have 7. So it is, we're doing 1, 4, 5, and 7 in rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, respectively. I'm going to pop you in there, and then I will jump into each room to make sure you're focusing on the right one. And I'm going to give you 8 minutes to look this over. Each one of these is a typical ESL mistake. And you're in your group, you are to come up with a fairly simple explanation about what the correct way is and why. Okay? Now, I've hit this for 4 minutes, so I'm going to create those 4 rooms. Let's see. Listen carefully. Kay, Michaela, and Rachel, you're going to have question 1. Ishara, Kayla, and Teresa, you're going to have question number 4. Aiden and Ariel, you're going to have question number 5. And Emma and Mandy, you're going to have question number 7. I'm going to give you, let's see. I'm going to give you 8 minutes. I'm going to give you 8 minutes to work together. Then we will talk about these afterwards. Once again, if you don't know the answer right off the bat, that won't surprise me at all. But I want you to talk it over and see if you can come up with what the reason is. All right? And then we will look at it and discuss them when we get out. Got what I want? Anybody have a question? Off we go. See you in a few minutes.
You got 5 minutes, you win?
No. Do you have the paper with you?
I'm looking on it, at it on the computer, and I think it's also in the book too, right?
Oh, I'm not sure about the yeah, it's on the computer.
Yeah, I think I saw it in the book also. Yeah. So I looked them up in the dictionary. You sure? Listen to you and a friend go to class? Hello? You don't tell your friend in class? Huh? You got 5 minutes of class.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Great. I think what word I selected was I didn't know the word. I don't know if it's like taking out so or taking it, but then it would be I looked them up instead, and then just yeah, I looked them up in the dictionary. So like switching, I looked up them to switch it.
Yeah, I checked with the answer on page 15. They even said you have to change the look them up to like I looked them up instead of like look up them in the dictionary. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do I go to class? Yes. Which one? Who's the key? This one. Who's the key? Who's that? Who's the key? Body.
Emma, did you guys figure it out?
Yeah.
Wonderful. There's Mandy. Mandy, I'm told you guys figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Oh snap!
Oh, snap. Actually, I see that on Google all the time. Don't they do that when something screws up? Oh, snap.
Yeah.
They must have learned it from somebody here. Okay, you guys, here we go. I'm going to go with, let's go with, let's see, number 7 first. I didn't know the word, so I looked up them in the dictionary. What's the problem? Emma, tell me.
I put that I looked up them should be switched to I looked them up.
That is exactly correct. You're halfway there. Why is that?
Is it because of the verb?
Well, it's partly because of a verb, but you didn't move the verb, you moved the pronoun. So why was that? Anybody know?
Has to be separate.
I'm sorry?
It has to be separate.
Oh, you must have looked it up in the book, and because it's got separated phrasal verbs. Here's the deal. We have lots of verbs that we use in English, and they really are used they are very frequently used with a particular preposition or adverb. They're called phrasal verbs. Because if you went and you looked something up in the dictionary, you didn't actually look up. It's kind of idiomatic. Its lookup means I went in to search for it. In some cases, if there is a pronoun like them, it may actually have to go between the verb and that thing called a particle. We will learn about that. Keep in mind that we've got to get to phrasal verbs. That'll be the area where we look at this. Number 5, Aiden and Ariel. You guys got the easy one. Tell me, the secretary knows from France, so she speaks French well. First, tell me what it should be.
We were stumped.
I don't believe it.
So we changed the correction to the secretary is not from France, so she doesn't speak French.
Is not from France, so she does not speak French, right? Is that what you said?
That is what it's
wonderful. Why did you do all of that?
Ariel,
Hey, I want you to look at that second part. Look at that second part. There's no do in there for does. Right? Where did the do come? Where does the does come from?
Well, really, it's kind of like inferred. Well, in the English language, like we just don't say not. She not speak. It just wouldn't sound right. So you would just have to add the do.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be do. We don't say do not. We would say does not.
Okay, we would say does not because we're talking about one person.
Right.
Now the big question is, and I want you to ponder this a little bit, where did the do come from? Inferred, okay, maybe so, but why do we do it? And when do we have to stick a does in there? This is all.
like,
go ahead.
Does is like an overall, like she speaks French.
Yeah, but how about if I said she does speak French? Do we need the does?
No,
she does speak French. The secretary is not from France, but she does speak French well. How about that? You see, there is a reason why we had to stick that do in there, and that is because when we negate sentences, when we change them from a positive sentence to a negative one, first off, we have to use the word not no. That's great. And we also have to have the not come after the first verb. Is not from France and does not speak. You're going to see this, and I'm going to harp on it a lot because as English speakers, most of us never think of this. But we switch things around when we ask questions. And in some cases, when we want to do not, we have to throw in extra words. So keep that in mind when we get to talking about questions and sentence negation. How about number one? Who was number one? Kay, Rachel, and Michaela. How did you fix that sentence?
We said that we switched when I watched a movie into when I was watching a movie on TV last night.
That's perfect. That's exactly correct for the correction. Why? Why is it was watching as opposed to watched?
We had said that it was because the movie was interrupted by the call. So
did you look that up? Did you guys look that up?
No, because she returns to the movie after. So
that is the exact correct answer. Something was happening in the past and it got interrupted by something else. And we usually use was and something like watching, or what's called the past progressive, to say it was happening in the past and it got interrupted. Good answer. And then number 4, we've got Ishara, Kayla, and Teresa. What's up with that? You ever heard anybody say something like this?
Yeah.
Okay. What's wrong? How did you fix it?
Well, because it's kind of like asking a question. I don't know where I left my watch, so I don't know what time is it. Means it's almost like they're like, I don't know what time is it. But if you change is it to it is, it sounds more of like a statement or a fact.
Okay.
I don't know where I left my watch, so I don't know what time it is.
Yes, you're making a statement. You're not asking a question anymore, right? And so in the case where we have a question, we usually we'll have something like the verb in front of the noun, like is it. But in the case of a statement, it's going to have the subject in front of the verb. It is. Good answer there too. All right. So you guys know more than you think you know. Sweet. That's excellent. Let's see what you know about this stuff, because we're about to go over here and talk about where we're going for the next several weeks. And that is the parts of speech. And I bet I forgot to share it. No, I did share it, didn't I? See a white screen there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool. So tell me about parts of speech. Somebody give me a part of speech. What's the first part of speech you think of?
Adjectives.
Adjectives. Okay, great. What does an adjective do?
Describe a noun.
Oh, very good. Okay, it describes a noun. I'm going to say also that it can describe a pronoun. It isn't as common, but it can describes a noun or a pronoun. So that's great. That is the adjective. What's the next one you think of?
Noun.
Noun. Oh, well, that's a good one to think of. What does a noun do?
Doesn't it describe a person, place, or thing?
Does it describe it, or does it kind of names it, right?
Right.
Or refers to it, because the adjective is the thing that does the description. So we're going to say that it does something like names a person, place, or thing. All right, I like that one. And thing is a very broad category. It doesn't have to be things I can touch. It can be things like dreams. It could be intelligence. It could be ideas and concepts and feelings, not just a person, place, or a concrete thing. Next, I need another one.
Pronoun.
I'm sorry?
Pronoun.
Pronoun. What does a pronoun do? I've already said that once today, so let's see who is listening. A pronoun
Replace noun.
replaces
It's a noun phrase.
a noun. That's
Great.
true, except I said be a little bit more precise. And this is what everybody's learned, right? We've all learned it this way. Replaces a noun. You're going to see later that it actually replaces a noun phrase. You may not be familiar with the idea of a noun phrase. We will get there in the second half of the semester. But places a noun phrase. So if I were to say, let's see, Queen Elizabeth is the Queen of England, I don't say Queen she or she Elizabeth. It's actually changing the whole thing to Queen Elizabeth becomes the she. So it's really more than just the noun, it's the noun phrase. But that's great. Next, two.
Verbs.
Verbs. Love verbs. Cool. And that was you, right, Nishara?
Yes.
What do verbs do?
It's an action word that tells
Action word. Anything else?
what's happening.
Okay, it tells what's happening. Great. So I agree with it. It's a word that is used to show an action or what? There's another function of verbs.
Or help verb.
I'm sorry?
Or help verb.
Well, helping verbs, that's another type. That's a good one. What else? What else does a verb do?
Express.
Express what?
What's happening? I don't know.
Well, that's the action part. See, here's the part that people tend to forget. An action word or a word for state of being. Okay? She is beautiful. What is the verb in she is beautiful?
Is
Is,
I'm sorry?
would it be
She is beautiful. What's the verb?
like
Huh?
wouldn't the verb be beautiful?
No,
It is.
it is. That's the idea of state of being. State of being. So she is beautiful. I could also say the dog smells bad. Now the dog could go out and smell a tree as an action verb. But if I say the dog smells bad, that's usually going to be a state of being. It's talking about what the dog is like. So don't forget this. And then, as Rachel brought up, we've got a whole bunch of other verb types of things, helping verbs, modal verbs, etc., that we're going to talk about. But the two main functions of a verb is to state an action or a state of being. Next.
Adverb.
Adverb. Anybody want to tell me what an adverb does?
Describe adjective.
Hi, you're absolutely right. It describes adjectives. What else? Okay, tell me, what does an adverb describe? Adverb. I can't get any more hint than adverb. K.
It modifies a verb.
See, look at that. So you're absolutely right. It does a verb. One last thing that adverbs do. They describe other adverbs. Yep. Super. Next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5. I can think of 9. We're only going to deal with 8. But what do you have next?
An article.
Oh, cool. Now we're going to do something here that's a little crazy, but it is an article. There's a whole class of words that includes articles, and these things are called determiners. And we are going to be talking about those next week when you look at the handout and some exercises in the second half of the week. But your article is great. We're going to call them determiners because it's a bigger class than only the articles. And they kind of, what do we say? I'm going to say describe or determine which noun. We'll get more to that later on. What else? Help me. Now I've got 6. I've only got 2 more to go.
Preparation.
Prepositions. Position. What does a preposition do? This one's hard. I mean, they do lots of different things. What are some of the things they do? Well, in a very broad sense, they tie nouns back to the rest of the sentence or to another part of the sentence. And they basically relate parts of the sentence. Ooh, not parts, relate parts of the sentence together. And we might say things like place, time, and direction. Those would be the biggies. What else? One last thing. I know the book says interjections, but we're not going to worry about interjections. They're kind of dopey. Ariel?
What about conjunction?
Conjunction, junction, what's your function? What does a conjunction do?
They make run-on sentences combined into one. So like the word but.
Okay, we could use but, we could use and they basically join they join things, right? Sometimes they join them like and to make it this plus that. Sometimes it's or this or that, but they join parts of the sentence together. All right, that is my 8, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you wanted to have a 9th one, you could throw something out there and call it interjections like wow or snap or various other things like that, but they're not very interesting. Students learn those by themselves and they're not particularly important to meaning, and so we're not going to spend any time really with those. But these are important, and these are the things that we're going to be studying over the next several weeks, actually. So let's stop on this one for the moment. And one thing that I am going to share is I'm going to share the mind map that you have already seen via the video. Okay, there it is. But what I want you to recognize is not only are there nouns, but there are categories of nouns. And when we're talking about those categories or subcategories of nouns, they're really quite important because they drive different kinds of grammar. So we've already said, what is a noun? It's something that names a person, place, thing, idea, feeling, concept. But all of those feeling, concept, and ideas are really just things. They're just things you can't touch. And as we look at that, we can go over here and say we have concrete nouns and we have abstract nouns. Concrete is like paper, and abstract is like intelligence. You can't touch it, smell it, see it, feel it, but you know it's something, and that would be like abstract. So there's concrete things that you can sense with your senses, and there are abstract ones which you know exist, but you can't necessarily see, touch, smell, or feel or hear them. Now, where do you find nouns? Where do you usually find nouns in an English sentence? Do they come before anything? Do they come after anything? Where do you find nouns?
After after article.
After what?
Articles.
After articles. Very good. That's a common place to find them. What else do they come after? Articles and
Adjectives.
The word.
adjectives. Exactly. So we can go out there, we can actually look at things and try to pick out what the nouns are. And in fact, we're going to do that in a few minutes. We've got common nouns, which are just common generic items, and we've got proper nouns, which are very specific people, places, and things. And we know that with proper nouns, we capitalize them, and with common nouns, we only capitalize them at the beginning of a sentence or in a title. But proper nouns are capitalized all the time, and they talk about someone or something very specific. Names, John, Rachel, Iden, Ariel, Deshara, all of those are proper nouns, as are Chicago, Illinois, the United States, etc. We've got count versus non-count nouns. You're going to see all about that in Key 5 for your reading for Monday, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but we do have some nouns that we don't count. We talk about as if they were just one monolithic thing. For instance, you go to the beach, you see sand. Even though it's made up of billions of grains of sand, we still call it sand as if it were singular. One of the things that you'll find with non-count nouns is they don't pluralize. And so we aren't putting an S on the end of them typically. I saw a lot of sands at the beach. I ate a lot of rices at the restaurant. Those are not places we pluralize. And those are typically non-count nouns. We also can make them possessive by saying John's mind map or Bishara's paper or NEIU's class. All of those would work like that. Now, the thing though that I want you to think about here is, where do you find nouns? Because some people don't like to call nouns those things that name person, place, or thing. And the reason they say that is, hey, if you don't know what the word means, you don't know if it's a noun or not. And they would prefer to look at something and figure out what the nouns are based on where they fall in a sentence. Now, I asked everybody to print the email from this morning. I'm sorry I sent it so late, but I didn't think about it. But it's out there. If you don't have it, you might want to go out and look at the email that I sent probably between 9 and 10 this morning, because it's got a little exercise that I want you to go through. And first off, I'm going to go ahead and share that on the screen, and then I'm going to break you up into breakout rooms again to try this. But let's take a look right here. Here is a little story. It's a paragraph, maybe only a couple of sentences. But if you were a teacher and you were thinking about how much English does my student know, if they knew 80% of the words in a passage, this is what it would look like. And that's what it would look like to me and to you. If they understood 80% of the words, they are not getting a very full picture of what this meaning is. However, what I'm wanting to do with this is I want you to go in and find the nouns and to be able to tell me why you think it is a noun. And we're only looking at those words that are in bold italics. Okay? Some of them repeat several times, so you don't have to come up with too many. But what I want you to do here is I'm going to put you into a group. And in that group, I want you to figure out which ones of these bold italicized words are in fact nouns. That's all you have to do first. You don't have to figure out what the other words are, just what those nouns are. I'm going to put you into 4 groups again, and I'm going to recreate it, so we'll probably have different people in different groups. Yep, looks like it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 8 minutes again. And I want you to go in there with your partner and look at all of those italicized bold words and figure out which ones are nouns and why you think that's true. And I will be here waiting with bated breath for your return. Bam.
Hey, Mandy.
Hi.
Hey, Rachel. You're muted, Rachel. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Hi.
All right. You guys got it open?
Yeah, I have it open.
Yeah, I have it open. Yeah.
All right. So I think the first one is a noun, because it looks like it's referring to a person, because blank asked. So I don't think anything but a noun could ask. Okay, Wrath Little. they were speaking or thinking in a raft little going on, and if so, what raft little it was? But I don't know what that was. The raft little had been raft little.
How about we just try to quietly go through it and then come back?
Huh?
We read the whole for
Sure, go ahead. Okay, Ajnik asked, thinking about if there was speaking or thinking and a raft little going on, and if so, what raft little it was. Then, after the subjects had gone through a Puccini cycle, they were Blurmbo up and asked if they had Rungzuli, if there had been raft little in the room, and if so, what raft little it was. The results, like Rungu themselves, are hard to quatrack. Clearest Singraph was that you could influence the raft little in the room with the raft little Nangbo in the pre-Nunlap interview. But all the wrong who reported room nittle in their raft itlu. So
Okay.
everybody got that? All right. How about we all go through and we just mark which ones we think are nouns, and then we can say why.
Are you
You did?
finished? Yeah, finished.
All right, what do you think?
So the first one, Brian Nick asked noun, and if there was speaking or thinking in a drop title going on and drop title noun. Yes.
Why do you think that?
Because it's after A.
Okay, that's what I wrote. Mandy, is that what you got?
Yeah, that's what I have too.
I got noun. All right. If so, what drop little? Oh my gosh.
You want to just battle them off? Like,
it was, this is the noun. I'm going to say one more, so somebody say. After the subject has gone through a punching circle, that's adjective. And you want to go ahead? And
I said blurbo was a verb. Rongzuli, I did not know.
noun.
You thought it was a noun?
Yeah, if they had something, right?
I thought it might have been a verb.
Okay, we have argument.
It could either be a possession or an action. Had something or had done something.
Oh yeah.
It was after an article, so it was a noun.
All right, here we go. Okay. Now we're here in the bowels of the beast. And so what did you find? For those of you who are native speakers or native speakers, you may have been able to tell basically which ones were nouns simply by the other words that are around it, or where it comes in the sentence. But recognize that, like I said, if your students only understand 80% of the words in here, it's a pretty big task for them to figure out what are nouns. To say it's a person, place, or thing, if you've ever had Dr. Stone is the person who just hates it when I say they represent a person, place, or thing, because he says if you don't know what the word is, you don't know whether it's a person, place, or thing. And so at that point, you may have to relate back to other rules that would help you figure out what the nouns are. So somebody tell me, what is the first noun that you found in there? What do you think?
The first word I'd
Yes, why did you think so?
because
Exactly. Who does
they
asking?
ask.
Some noun person is going to do the asking, right? And it's very difficult to find a noun or pronoun, but in this case a noun, in front of the verb of the sentence, right? Particularly in a statement. Let us see. Rachel, what did you come up with the second one? What is the next noun?
Okay. The second one is drop little, going. Drop little.
Yeah, raft little, right? Everybody knows what a raft little is. Kay knows what a raft little is. And so a raft little, why do you think raft little is a noun?
Because it's after A.
Very good. It's coming after an article, and it's coming seemingly for a verb, a raft little going on, right? So we've got this noun in front of a verb, but a better case is the fact that it comes after A. What's next? Michaela.
You found that Pluncini would also be nice one.
Now that's an interesting one. How many people thought Pluncini was a noun? Raise your hand. If you thought Pluncini was a noun, raise your hand. Okay, Emma and Michaela. All right. I could see where you might think that is, but I don't think it's a noun. What did other people think Pluncini was? Yeah, I'm thinking it's an adjective. Now, it could be a noun if it were a compound noun. That's true. But generally speaking, when we look at something like this, we've got a word that's in front of a noun and it's telling us what kind it is. Now, earlier we talked about a rafflettle. That was what Rachel brought up because it came after a. And if we applied that rule again here, we would come up with a noun like Michaela and Emma did. However, we've got to also recognize that very often we'll have an article in front of an adjective that comes in front of a noun. And so in that case, that's kind of why I'm thinking that this is it's an adjective. So let's see, we've got rafflettle again down there, 2 more rafflittles. Oh, Pluncini cycle. They were blurbo up. Anybody think that was a noun? Blurbo? No, looks like a what?
Verb.
A verb, probably. Very good. How about they had room Zuli and asked if they had room Zuli? What do you think? Now?
I think it's a noun, but I don't know. I don't say it's a verb.
You said it was a verb? I said it was a verb also. Now, the reason that I think that is I'm looking at the other parts of the sentence. Did they had ring Zuli, had been rafflettle, in the room, and so forth. So this had room Zuli, it could be a noun, but it could also be a verb, much like there had been in the next phrase. How about what's next?
Rafflettle is still verb.
No, it's still a noun. How about room? If there had been rafflettle in the room, huh?
It's a noun. It sounds like a place.
It's very good. You're exactly right. Here's what I'm going to do. Actually, you'll be able to see them already. I opened them up at noon. I'm sorry, at 2 o'clock. But the mind map, the presentation on ELL, grammar, and this key are all out in week 2 now. They're down at the bottom of week 2 where it says PowerPoints and mind maps. You can go in and compare your answers with the remainder of the answers in the key in the file called Key to Word Type of Exercise. Okay, so I've already run over, so you'll have any shot later. But any questions? I will wait here until you guys are all gone before I leave. And you can ask questions starting now until you're gone. But if you're finished, see you next week.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Click, 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 click.